Since I'm stuck in due to this pandemic and unable to drive any of my cars, including the Tesla, and I still have the Smart and the V8 Discovery because I can't sell them at the minute, I thought I'd do a little video on a project I did on Bob earlier in the year to tidy up the interior. So this is what the centre console used to look like, and it was okay, apart from when you need to get access to the transmission tunnel, which I sometimes did. If you needed to do that, you needed to remove this entire section, which includes taking out the cam locking diff switch, the electric windows. If you do it properly, you need to remove the handbrake, and it goes under the cubby box, so you need to remove that too. It's a total nightmare. So I decided to cut the thing down. And you might be thinking, well, if I cut that away from the back section, aren't they all going to fall apart? Well, luckily, the back has screws, 4 screws holding it in place, and the front has 3 screws, totally separate, so they're absolutely fine. So I can just chop it in half. That then leaves a gap between the centre console and the dashboard. And that comes onto the second part of this project, because this centre piece of the dashboard is kind of horrible. I mean, it was okay in the early 80s, but it's not very nice now. It has a missing panel here, which I think used to be a clock or something. It has a crack here. It has heater controls here, which don't do anything. It has a button here for the blower, which I don't really like. It's one of the little clicky circuit breakers. It's okay, but I don't really like it very much. It has a cigarette lighter socket here, which I don't use. And it's generally just a bit manky. So I'm going to make something better. I'm also going to move the electric window controls from their strange position back here, where they're almost behind you, to the front. So the first thing to do was remove the centre console and cut it down with an angle grinder. You might be thinking that I'm ruining the interior of this car by cutting original plastic down, but it wasn't in good condition. You saw the cracks, there were plenty of them, there was also a hole already in the dashboard, and it wasn't in good condition. This is the last piece of original carpet I took out and threw away quite a while ago, and this wasn't in a good state, so it's not worth saving anything. The next thing to do as I was taking the dashboard apart was to remove the heater controls. Now the heater does still work in this Discovery, it is still connected to the water system, but for some reason the blower motor isn't connected to the original control. There's a separate one in there. I've seen pictures of it being fitted, but I don't really know why. But the controls for the vents and everything, they don't work, they're just routed elsewhere, and it's all fixed. So they came out, everything came out. I don't need it, I can set the thing to full heat, that's all I'll ever need, and just switch the blower on and off, that's fine by me. I wanted to keep the switch panel and the relays in the same place, so I carefully removed these and made sure there were labels on the connectors, because I wanted to take the metal plate off and so I can trace it to my new panel. The relays were quite complicated, I didn't want to take this all apart, so I just cut the panel and removed it, and then the new panel will have a position to slide it in, so you don't actually need to take anything apart, because it doesn't look like it would go back together easily. Then I needed to remove the cam switch for the diff lock and make sure that was all labelled up. Finally, the turbo gauge had to be removed from the dash before it got to the point of no return, where I actually cut a huge section out of the dash. You ever get the feeling that you've gone too far with something? Yeah. This was done using my Makita cordless multi-tool, and it was like a knife through butter. It was really good. It does make a lot of dust. So with measurements taken, I had a look around my spare supplies of metal and found a sheet of aluminium that I had spare. So I cut this out and marked on the position for the relays and the switches initially, and at the bottom there's a tab which will be folded, and that matches the 2 front bolt positions for the centre console, so it'll sort of sandwich between and keep this all in place. The top screws will match the existing screws for the 2 plates that were there before, and then I'll fill in the rest with the other bits and pieces. I have 2 voltmeters that are going in, going into this switch panel, which will go into the middle, which will then house the cam switch, the blower switch, and the circuit breaker for the cam switch as well, and then the turbo gauge will go back into the top. Unfortunately, I don't have any pictures of the thing being built because I just got on with it, but this is pretty much the finished item. As you can see, the relays are in the top left, switches in the top right, same positions as before, and the screws at the top. The turbo gauge and space for one other is in the middle, rather than just having it randomly placed. The electric window switches have been moved. They are now wired in. It allowed me to tidy up the wires that went to the back as well, because I've removed the electric mirrors and fitted Defender mirrors instead. In the middle is the blower switch. These two switches, this one and the one next to the cam diff lock switch, are both still circuit breakers, but they're standard switch style. They will still cut out if they need to. So that's there. The cam switch is now in place as well, and that panel is removable if I need to do it, but I don't have to remove it to take the center console out. That's the main thing. And finally, I've got the voltmeters, and they are through a relay, which I'll just demonstrate now. The idea is that I can have the voltmeters on permanently if I want to, or with the ignition, or if I'm driving at night I can turn them off entirely. And that's it, essentially complete. Unfortunately I don't have a picture with the labels in place, but they are all there now. The space at the bottom is to allow me to add two big isolators for both winches. They'll each handle about 600 amps. They're about £80 each, so I'm sort of saving up for those and hoping they fit. I think I left enough space, but it now has the edging on there to make it look nice, and it turns out this aluminium was too thick, really. Trying to file it down to make the holes the right size was a nightmare, but yeah, lesson learnt on that one. The quick access to the transmission tunnel was tested the next week actually after finishing this, because when I went to the off-road site, which you may have seen the videos of, I started to lose high and low gears on the way back. It started to pop out constantly, and there's something wrong with the lever. I haven't had a chance to look at it properly, but I needed to completely take it apart at the side of the road, and having it easily removable was fantastic, so very pleased with that. I'm going to leave you with this slow motion clip of the CB aerial on the back of Bob bouncing around to the note of the engine. Just watch the way it bounces. This is all in slow motion, but yeah, it's quite interesting, and thanks for watching.